Okay, we are continuing with lesson five, driving maneuvers, and we've talked about 2 point turns, 3 point turns, U turns, and right and left turns. And now we are moving on to parallel parking. And just a heads up, um, well, the first thing is that whenever we start, actually, I'm going to skip that part right now, and I'm going to tell you about parallel parking now. If you live in a rather congested urban area, you will need to know how to parallel park. And every vehicle is different in terms of its length, in terms of its width, in terms of its turning radius. Okay, and there's also going to be other features that may help you park, with like a rear view camera and so on, and some type of warning device if you're getting too close to the car behind you or whatnot. So, with that in mind, you will have to practice and practice and practice no matter what when it comes to parallel parking. There's a plethora of videos and other information on parallel parking online. And after this lesson, or after this little commentary, this is going to be one of the thousands of other videos that go up on YouTube all the time. So without further ado, let's go through it. So I do want you to imagine you're driving in your hometown, probably in Staten Island, and we have cars. We're on a rather busy road, rather congested. We need to find a place to park, and the only type of parking that is available is parallel parking. And we are going down the road looking for an ideal place to parallel park. And what we're looking for right off the bat is a space that is around 1.5 sizes of your car. Okay. If it's only the length of your car, you cannot park there. It's not physically possible to get your car into that space. Now, if you can find something that's 2 or more spaces, that's wonderful. If you can find a spot where you can just pull right in, so that you don't have to perform a parallel park, even more wonderful. And I've been known to look for those spots, and maybe even pass up a parallel parking spot, because I felt pretty confident that I could find a spot where I could just pull right in. Okay, but it's a great skill to have, and really, if you want to enjoy an urban environment and get there with your vehicle, you will have to master the skill. Okay, so imagine going down that road, that congested road, cars parked, parallel parked along the side of the road on the right hand side, and you finally come to the spot where you see a spot where it looks like you'll be able to fit in. You're going to have to claim that spot. The way to claim that spot is by using your indicator, your blinker, your flasher. Okay, you want to flick it on so that it's flicking to the right. And at that point, you've claimed that spot. Okay, your foot is now off the accelerator. It is hovering over the brake. Your car's decelerating. Start depressing your brake pedal, and you're going to bring your car like overshooting the spot, right? So you're going to really bring your car down to speed, though, because you're going to have to manage the traffic behind you. Okay, so you're going to want them to really slow down and come to a complete stop before the spot that you're claiming. Okay, most drivers in an urban area will recognize, okay, this is what you want to do, and will be patient enough to stop their car and allow you to perform your maneuver. Okay, but the slower you bring them down to speed, the easier it is for them to recognize what you're doing and for them to stop beforehand. What you don't want them to do is stop like halfway through halfway through the spot that you're claiming for yourself. Okay, so bring them down to speed. Okay, you might even come to a full stop before your spot just to get them to stop. I don't know. And then you're going to have to bring your car forward. Your car should be moving forward so that it is parallel with the target car ahead of you. You want to have the mirrors of your car lined up with the mirrors of the car next to you. I'm going to call that target car number 1. All right. Now, you also want to be around 2 feet away from that car to your right. Okay. From target car number 1. Anything less than that, and you're probably not going to be able to perform this maneuver correctly, at least with the guidelines that I'm going to give you. Okay. Once you've done that and you're 2 feet away, your mirrors are lined up, what I want you to do is I want you to start backing up. Okay. You're going to back up until you see, you're going to be looking you're going to be looking all over. You will have to do 360 looks. You're going to have to use 2 hands on your wheel. Okay. I believe it is acceptable to do hand over hand steering instead of feeding the wheel to yourself in like a hand to hand steering maneuver. There's so much turning of the wheel that needs to take place. I can't imagine not doing hand over hand. However, I keep hearing that there are evaluators on road tests that will not pass you if you do hand over hand. So if you can practice doing hand to hand while you're making this maneuver, even better. Anyway, looking out of the right backseat passenger's window, the last one, the corner, you want to wait until you see the back of the target car number 1 in that corner. Once you see that in the corner of that window, then you need to crank the wheel all the way to the right, hand over hand, until it's completely cranked. Then release the brake again. Allow the car to start moving backwards it's just moving backwards. I don't know how to explain it other than the nose of the car is starting to go to your left and you're moving back into that spot. Okay. As you're doing that, you need to then look in your left side mirror and when you see the complete car, I call it target car number 2, behind you in your side mirror, then you need to stop. And then center the steering wheel again. And then take your foot off the brake again and start going straight back. Okay. You're now looking again into your right view mirror. And you're looking for the curb. Once the curb starts to disappear into your blind spot, you're going to then crank the wheel one more time to the right. Allow the car to continue moving, continue cranking, and then continue to watch that curb in your right hand mirror until it starts to get parallel with your car. Like, for example, the handle, if there's a backseat handle running, so that it's parallel with the curb. Once it's parallel with the curb, you can stop your car completely, straighten the wheel, put the car into drive, and move forward a little bit so that it is now in the middle between your target car number 1 and target car number 2. There are a lot of steps with this. And while you're doing all these things, we need to remember that one, relatively, you need to be covering the brake the entire time. So you're using the brake to move your car. The one little problem with that is that when your wheel is cranked all the way at a stopped position, sometimes your car needs a little bit of accelerator to get it moving. Okay, just because there's so much friction on the road. Okay, but just a touch, and then you can put your foot right back on the brakes again, because once it starts moving, then you're okay. Okay, so that's something to consider. The other thing to consider is this: while you're performing this whole maneuver, you do have to be wary of the nose of your car clipping target car number one ahead of you, right? We have to make sure that it clears it no matter what. And this is going to take practice because every car is shaped differently. Some are longer, some are shorter, some have a different turning radius. So you're going to have to be very, very wary of that. The second thing is you're going to also have to be wary that you don't bump into target car number two behind you. Okay. If you have a nice little warning system in your car, that works out very well for you. If you don't, you're going to have to get very, very proficient at being able to recognize how much space you actually have in your blind spot. Okay. We all know that we have a blind spot underneath our window, our rear window. And we don't know how much room that is. Every car, again, is very different. I drive an SUV and it's high up the ground, and that window is pretty high in my car. So I've got quite a bit of room back there. But if you have a low car with with a window that's pretty low, you're not going to have a lot of room, right? So it all depends on your car for that as well. One thing I like to do before even doing this is practicing in a parking lot with cones. Okay. Uh, I recommend getting cones to practice with. And I also recommend those flags that you can buy, for example, for the corners of a soccer field. Those flags, they're nice and high. You can see them, and they're not going to hide in your blind spots when you're practicing these maneuvers. Sometimes you can stick them right in the cone itself. Maybe you can find it. You can even get a pole, okay, and if you really want to, you can spray paint it, a fluorescent color so that it's easier to see, and you can stick it into the cone, for example. Okay. But these are things that you can use to practice with in a parking lot if you don't feel confident about working with cars right away. And that's totally understandable. And I do this with my own students too. Where I live, it's not likely that my students will ever really need to parallel park. It might sound surprising to you, but in the town where we live, there's very, very few places where one needs to parallel park. And even then, it's quite easy to go around the block and find a place where there's no cars on the road, where you can, you'll have like the spaces of like 5 cars to park. So that is our wrap on parallel parking. Again, practice definitely makes perfect with this, and it requires, you can see there's at least 5 steps there. And at the same time, we are moving, we are looking around, we are looking in very different directions and using different reference points. It's a very, very complicated maneuver. It's one of those things that you should start practicing now so that you'll become proficient at it over time. It's probably going to take you around, I want to say around 50 times to get proficient at doing. Okay. Especially when you don't have your, parent or some other instructor in the car with you. So start practicing it now. Don't get upset at yourself when you don't get it right. And practice around 5 times each time you go for a drive. You'll get better over time. Okay. Don't expect perfection until the 50th time. Okay, that's it for now. We'll come back for some other tips in just a minute.